So speaking of important dramaturgs, our next speaker is Bjarni Jónsson. We first met Bjarni and his colleagues from Iceland. We were in Wiesbaden in a festival there, a fantastic festival of plays from all over Europe, and we were doing a play called The Pride of Purnell Street by Sebastian Barry, and we met all the Icelandic guys and just connected and hit it off with them immediately. And we kept in touch, I suppose, over that time. And then Bjarni runs a fantastic festival called LÓKAL International Festival in Reykjavík with his partner Ragnheiður Skulladóttir, and we went over with Fishamble Work, and other companies have been over to Iceland as well to the local festival. It's a fantastic festival to be in. And then we did a work in progress in the Dublin Theatre Festival of a play called Silent by Pat Kinnavan that we've been touring for a long time. And I remember it's a play, if you've seen it, about all sorts of things, about a homeless man and about what we're silent about, and it's influenced by silent movies. So silence is very much a part of it. And I remember Bjarni afterwards saying to me, oh, that'd be great, because it's about silence, have you thought of recording the whole play and playing it, and Pat stands on stage and doesn't say a word, and he's completely silent. And even though we haven't done that, it struck me as a really interesting dramaturgical question. Like if a dramaturg's role is partly to ask one provocative, interesting, possibly the silver bullet question, then that was a really interesting one, because we came back to it many times, discussing it and talking about it, and what we'd be silent about, what we would talk about, what would be recorded, what would be spoken live, and the question kind of infiltrated our thinking about it a lot. Bjarni and Ragnheiður have been over. You might know them from being part of the Make programme, and also working with Broken Talkers. So we're delighted you're here with us today, Bjarni. So this is Bjarni Jónsson. Thanks.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Fishamble, for the invitation to the conference, and happy 30th. It's great to see a theatre company thrive for 30 years. They're relying and building on new plays by people who have dedicated themselves to playwriting, so it's definitely an achievement, and of course a result of a lot of hard work. So it's an honor to be standing here. Jim already told a little bit about our ties to Ireland that we've been kind of cultivating for now 8 years. Started out actually with us putting a little bit of money into the production of Blue Boy by the Broken Talkers, which meant that they kind of got on to do the project, and they kind of became sort of associate artists with us, although we are not. We run a festival and we do a lot of stuff, but we don't have a venue or anything like that, but we're kind of co-producers in the sense that if we like someone's work, if we like somebody, we like to work with them, we will put in a lot of effort in making that happen. So since then I've done dramaturgy on Have No Mouth and The Speech, and now we're actually currently working on a very exciting project with Mary Coughlin and Mongoose. So that's supposed to be on in November, as far as I know. But in my input here, I want to try and filter out a couple of thoughts that I have on writing for the stage, and the people on the receiving end, the audience. And remember, this is all up for debate. What I'm going to say, I've jotted down. I have loads of thoughts on theatre, but I jotted some of them down here. As a writer, I've been on a journey that started out in the world of painters and millers, but it has taken me more and more into new territories of theatre and performance. And which is actually the reason why I asked the folks at Fishamble to introduce me as writer / dramaturg / producer, a man carrying a lot of hats. I still write plays, but they are influenced also more and more by my work with other artists. Start with Athens. I went to Athens a few weeks ago as a part of the entourage of Iceland Dance Company. The company had been invited to perform at the Onassis Cultural Center, and I actually had served as a dramaturg on this particular project called Sacrifice, a festival of common things made holy. And it is indeed a festival, comprises of 4 different works that combine dance, performance, music, and film. Choreographer Erna Ómarsdóttir, visual artists Matthew Barney and Ragnar Kjartansson, and music by Bryce Dessner of the National. So it's a festival with 2 intermissions. The audience can also visit a marketplace featuring representatives of different belief systems, local artisans, vendors of food. It's a concept that revolves around the idea of art and religion being of the same origin, and that by making things holy on stage, we are able to redefine the term itself however it may suit us. So this is a picture from that event, 8 dancers playing guitar and dancing, and they do it really well. I also did put in some writing, creative writing for Sacrifice, including a text about the 7 stages of death. I also wrote a so-called hate yoga session, which was a kind of a quirky workshop based on the assumption that whatever the content is, you can do it in the form of yoga. So there I was in Athens, writer / dramaturg / producer, but luckily more or less playing the tourist, which meant that I walked around a lot, observing ruins and rocks. And I also admire the remnants of the Dionysus Theatre at the foot of the Acropolis. And actually, I found the ruins of this city, or the ancient Athens, really bewildering and amazing. I mean, long before capitalism, the Greeks in 500 BC did have sponsored front row seats in their theatres. So it was really going back to the roots somehow. Yes. I also remember the words of the Austrian writer Thomas Bernhard, who used to describe theatre actually as an ancient perversity. But the world of painters and millers with roots in Athens, when I started writing in my early 20s, I would actually gobble up everything written by Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, Harold Pinter, Beckett, Bertolt Brecht. I thought these authors were actually the heart and soul of contemporary theatre. And in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was finishing my degree in theatre studies at the University of Munich, I still carried with me a very strong notion of the role of the playwright and its importance. And by then I had added some other names to my list of favorite writers, Bernhard, Kreutz, Heiner Müller, and as far as I could see, not much seemed to really rattle the nice little literary cage I was building myself as a true believer in the power of playwriting. I moved back to Iceland, to Reykjavík, started working in the business, dramaturg, translator, playwright, things were good. I got my work produced by major theaters, there was even some interest from abroad, but something always kept bugging me. I felt somehow imprisoned, not only by the traditions kept alive in the theater, but also by the role of the playwright and the position of the writer within the theater apparatus. This frustration then led me to explore new grounds and try to exceed the boundaries I had respected before as a writer and a dramaturg. We all know that the stage is an empty spot in our everyday life. It's a venue where we agree upon a different version of reality. The stage is a contract, a place of imagination played out by actor and spectator. Everything that enters this particular spot will gain significance in the minds of those attending. The spectator focuses on characterization, words, actions, and accompanying visuals in order to understand, and that's the compulsive behavior of our brains. We want to get the story right, get real. That being said, I think there is a relentless search for the real in theater and performance. A search that actually now influences the way we act or perform, and also the way we write. So, if we get back to Athens for a moment, we know through the dramaturgy of Aristotle that something in our psyche actually strives for harmony of content and form, and trying to stick to structure merely for structure's sake has never brought any luck to a playwright. So we must admit that through the centuries, writing has evolved along with our perception of the human. Now, the classical structures described by Aristotle are still experienced in movies, series made for the screen, Netflix, there's been talk about Netflix today. But dramaturgy actually continues to be in flux. It's not written in stone. We need only to go back 60 years when the German theoretician Peter Sonti cleverly pointed out the faults in the dramaturgy of Ibsen and Strindberg, explaining these as being a part of a major transition in playwriting at the time. It was a departure from the dramatic to the epic. A little more than 100 years ago, dramaturgical thinking had taken a leap when playwrights came to regard epic influence as an integral part of contemporary writing. While plays such as Ibsen's Master Builder or John Gabriel Borkman remained stuck in the character's past, never really getting anywhere near the traditional drama, pioneers of the so-called epic theater, Brecht, Piscator or Thornton Wilder in the States, recognized the problem. They acknowledged that the industrialized human, now severing his ties with the idea of an almighty God, was being constantly influenced by his surroundings and past. And this stood in total contradiction to the definition of the classical drama character, who actually didn't need a past because his role in the play did not involve any digging for the truth. He was bound to wind up as a victim of exactly the tragic events the drama set out to expose from the very beginning. So the concept of epic theater, this particular approach to the performing arts, definitely did help authors to resolve a great dramaturgical dilemma in the latter part of the 20th century. And its impact has actually lasted well into our times, seeing that the methods and tools developed within the frame of the epic theater have become standard in contemporary performance. Some talking to, for example, about things like actors speaking directly to the audience, the use of stand-up situations, the use of things like film footage, clips, sound recordings, microphones. And today I believe that we're actually experiencing yet another transition in writing and dramaturgical thinking. This time, however, we might describe the situation as a dilemma of presentation. But it's still a problem that affects writers as much as actors or directors. It's time to talk about the internet. Now, we talk about ancient Athens, we talk about before and after Christ, but in theater we do better to add before and after the internet. How much theater people have come to realize the major consequences of having this virtual global connection in operation around the clock, I don't know. But more and more, theater seems to have lost its important status as a source or a medium of information. Before the internet, we could go to see a play, maybe from a foreign country or an exotic region. We could learn something about human existence in those places. This rarely happens anymore. Plays do not easily cross language borders, and we have other sources of information than theater. The complexity of our contemporary life and our interconnection has emptied theater of much of its journalistic aspect and impact. It has always been difficult to write for the stage, write a credible text or play that the spectator is able to connect with. So-called masters of drama, people like Ibsen, Strindberg, they had their own problems finding an adequate dramaturgy for their writing. But every writer must imagine his audience as being made up of highly intelligent people, observing, open-minded. Without this imagined audience, there is no way to write a text that evokes the interest of actors, performers, directors, or in the end, public itself. So how can we properly react to an audience that carries in general a lot more baggage to the theater than before? By baggage, I mean that theater goers are more conscious, they're better informed, they're much better at decoding visuals and text than they used to. It don't matter if they're young or old. Everyone is being bombarded with all sorts of produced material, staged events in various media available at all times. Even the word dramaturgy has become a household term which people apply freely to real or fictitious things. And the audience don't need as much text anymore to be able to connect with the play. They dislike detailed exposés most of the time, and some hate being confronted with too much drama on stage. Some even say that though they like theater, they don't like acting and drama. I hate theater, someone said to me once, meaning actors delivering a play. So the contemporary playwright has to dig deeper and deeper into his toolbox. It's a challenging world, especially for us writers who grew up on the Millers and the Mullers back in the days. Now, apart from working on my own plays, I've also worked with artists and collectives, as mentioned, such as the Broken Talkers. And for the past 6 years, I worked with a group called Kriðplir Theatre Group. Actually, this has been one of the most exciting parts of my journey as a writer recently. Of the 4 members, I'm the only one who's not performing, and because all of our pieces are based on improvisation, it remains my particular task to collect and manage sentences and ideas that may sooner or later accumulate and form a script. usually later, because procrastination and agony are the main driving forces of our work. So the performers play a kind of an exaggerated version of themselves on stage. The work is a continuing exploration of the persona and its presentation in theatrical surroundings. It is each and every time a play on the self and must be understood as a response to our blurred notion of reality and the ongoing quest for the real in theater and performance. The dramaturgy follows a non-linear path of anti-climaxes, so that the presentation may at times come across as both chaotic and erratic. And actually we had a piece in the Dublin Theatre Festival in 2016 at the Project Arts Centre called Crisis Meeting. I don't know if you have a photo of that. Chandrika, is she anywhere to push the button? All right, okay. In Crisis Meeting, we weave together in one process the writing and the staging of a piece while keeping our personal history in mind and observing ourselves in our daily routine. The three performers aim at restoring their self-confidence in a play by explaining to the audience the group's working methods, but opening up to the public has its consequences. The exposure, the sharing and oversharing, and the dramatization of personal experience produce a stream of consciousness where dramatic and private matters blend in with mundane and farcical elements. So it should be the next photo. Yeah, that's the one. This is actually in the space where the thing was created, so it's a kind of a run-through we had. The text itself is an adaptation of disorganized meetings, conversations, and openings that were part of the working process leading up to the staged piece. So I have here a lengthy quote from a review here in Ireland, but I'm not going to go there. So don't worry. But the work with this group calls into mind an interesting aspect of the discussion in contemporary theatre and performance. It is the question of performing or acting on stage and its effect on writing and staging, and if there is at all a divide. What is a character? How do we present it in text and on stage? The idea of an actor, somebody who's trained to embody a fictitious character, has been criticized in recent years, I think mostly due to the overwhelming popularity of film and television. The fact that you need to perform or have a presence rather than act in front of the camera has led us all to form a negation of a kind to declamatory acting style. And this has influenced both work on the screen and in the theatre. But theatre has always thrived on the events going on in the world. It has a way of absorbing new technology, ideas and trends, and develop new methods of presentation. So the overflow of information and the ever-growing expectations from the audience side are only two topics of many that come to mind when I think about the current situation in writing for the theatre. So I guess in the future, playwrights will still be going strong, but they might feel more and more pressure as there's a growing number of theatregoers who are bringing a lot of content to the theatre and would like the theatrical production to unfold before their eyes almost as a sort of a blank canvas. These spectators will demand fewer and fewer words from the playwright. They will demand less and less information. They will attend a show in the hope of being able to project upon the stage whatever content, context, visuals, images, intelligence, and emotions they have boiling in their hearts and minds. They won't be any different from other people who have lived before. They'll be as gifted and as smart as the inhabitants of the ancient town at the foot of the Acropolis. But I have a feeling that even if we still are in Athens, or we still visit Athens from time to time, we're out of Athens. That there are new movements being created around the world, physically, intellectually, and these waves that relate to our interconnection and interaction will call for new narratives and new and hopefully exciting dramaturgy. Now, to close this, living in Germany in the days of Miller and Müller, I was always amazed by their theatre landscape, of course, but also their strong belief in newspaper publishing. Other German-speaking nations join in this tradition. In Switzerland, the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, a Zurich newspaper, made history by always being the last to print the news. Their agenda was, we want to bring the news, but we're not interested in breaking them. I remember that the paper would wait for 2 or even 3 days before printing its news about whatever was going on in the world. By then, the staff had gathered enough information to be able to deliver a pretty thorough briefing on the top stories. It was slow journalism. And they still may be doing this, I don't know. But as a concept, I actually think it may fit the performing arts. Maybe it could help and re-establish the theater's credibility as a venue for trends, debates, and issues in society. That's the only way to build or rebuild the idea of the theater as a place of contemplation, where writers and others work on the abstracts of time, space, and on bringing about social healing. So that's it. I'll be here this afternoon.